Okay. So, what do you think? What do you think is the thing that's kind of holding you back, if you like?
I think perhaps part swim fitness, over reliance on the buoy, but like we've been speaking about, other coaches advocate that. I've only probably just in the last few months, thought more about my actual rotation. So I think I was swimming quite flat on the water. And then come the actual race day, because I can tend to do it, although I do use the crutch of a pool boy in the pool, I admit, and then obviously in open water is predominantly wetsuit.
Yep.
But on the race day, it's probably a little bit psychological as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But I am conscious, especially more so in the pool than open water, about making sure that I'm reaching, but not overly reaching, so I'm overgliding or anything like that. I try to keep my legs as close to the surface as possible. Although I don't always remember it, every now and again I sort of give myself a little bit of a reality check to kick from the glutes as opposed to from the knees. Whether I'm actually doing that, when I come to see it on video, will be a different story.
Yeah, yeah. What about your breathing?
Probably, again, from what I've learned after Swim Smooth, where they do the bubble breathe bit. Certainly, when you were filming me on the last two strokes closer to this one, I started to feel my breathing was a little bit anxious.
Yep.
So probably not. It's not so. I'm breathing more or less because I'm always breathing to the left. So it's more or less every stroke that I'm breathing on. But I'm probably waiting until I come out of the water to breathe, as opposed to blowing out within the water. So then when I'm coming out of the water or rotating the head to the left, that I'm actually taking oxygen in. And again, whether I have thought about, although I've managed to avoid it so far, even when I've been in rough swims, about the need to actually breathe bilaterally, A, to sort of smarten up the breathing, but also as well, B, to try and keep the stroke a little bit more central.
Yep.
I've definitely thought about that in open water, although I've not done it because I revert to norm when I start to get tired. But certainly in open water, whether that would actually help me keep me in more of a straight line as opposed to zigzagging.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, in terms of balancing the stroke up, absolutely, you need to balance the stroke up. There's an argument about whether it needs to be symmetrical to balance up. You can have an unsymmetrical stroke, but it still be balanced. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because of the way you can position your arms in the pool, the catch in the pool. So there are ways of balancing up the stroke, even if you're not breathing on both sides. The Swim Smooth methodology, as you said, is to balance up the stroke completely. Okay, well let's play it through. Let's play it through and see what we come up with. So this side view really is obviously the poolside view, and this view really mainly is good for highlighting the head position, obviously the arm recovery, and obviously the rest of the body kind of position in relation to the water line there. Now, what I noticed, and I said I played Russ's clip back when I was at home before I came. What struck me is there's nothing glaringly obvious in the stroke itself. So it's a case of looking a bit deeper to see what kind of combination of things need looking at. Can you remember what Russ said to you about your stroke on the camp?
Yeah, following the video analysis, which was day 1 or 2, whenever we were, it was Russ. Although I've heard the phrase used before, but reach more over the barrel.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't using the word that I know Paul uses in Swim Smooth about smiley and towards the back wall. So I think, especially as I started to tire, I wasn't going far enough over, which was having an impact on the catch and the push.
Yeah.
And I was, certainly at Lanzarote, I was bringing the arm out of the water too quick as opposed to pushing back.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, that sounds about right, actually, because when we look at swim correction, there's kind of a hierarchy that we look at. Starts off with the head positioning, what's happening with the breathing, and what's happening with at the top end here, and holding the breath particularly will cause the back end of the legs to sink.
Yeah.
So we look at things in a certain order because sometimes you might think it's a problem with your legs, when in actual fact it's a problem something else further up the kind of chain, if that makes sense. So you've got a nice head position there, you've got a bow wave being formed on your head. And I think you've obviously been thinking about keeping your head low and keeping it still, which is working.
again, picking the bits up from some of the swim smooth stuff about the Popeye mouth to the left.
Mm-hmm.
I do not concentrate, but I am conscious of the bow wave to
Mm-hmm.
get that little part of the breathing right.
Yeah, and I can see that. You can see that the head's in a really good position there. What I'm seeing here at this point is you talked about stretching out a bit further. You're coming in very close to your head here.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so you're shortening the stroke right the way down. And we'll have a look what effect that has afterwards. I mean, you are entering the water and extending forwards, but we'll have a closer look at that in a minute. So you're then turning to breathe, head's nice and low. Yeah, and your timing's slightly out here because you should be rolling over as that hand enters.
Yeah.
You're kind of almost reaching over the top.
Yeah.
So it's the timing's slightly out, yeah? There's nothing major there. There's nothing major there. I mean, we need to look at the arms and what the arms are doing, but there's nothing in terms of the body position and the head position. That looks fine. That looks fine. We'll have a look at the hands and the arms in a little bit more closely in a second.
I didn't know as well whether I'm crossing the centre line. I don't think I am. But obviously it's more difficult to tell when you.
Yeah, we'll have, because there's the overhead view is the best one for that. And I looked at the clip earlier when I was at home, and it didn't look too bad. So it'll be interesting to see if it's still the same. Okay, so your hand is entering the water. Let's just take it back. It doesn't like going backwards, this thing. Your hand is entering the water, extending forwards. There's a little bit of a push down here.
On the forearm.
So you're pushing down. So you're pushing down here.
Yeah.
See, so it's coming straight down, parallel to the bottom of the pool. Push that down. What happens is it forces the front end of the body up, which forces the legs down.
Right.
Okay. So you need to be starting to engage the catch earlier. We'll have a look at that in a minute. So I think
That's quite a lot, isn't there?
I think what we're seeing here is probably one of the major issues that we're going to have to sort out, because your hand's entered the water, you're still pushing down. So you've lost all this time, and then what's happening there, look, is if anything, you're slightly over rotating as a result because your body's falling down through the water. And that will probably be, we'll have a look at your legs in a minute, that will probably lead to a scissor kick at the back end, which causes you to slow down again. So I think a lot of it is going to be related to timing. So the timing of the actual hand entry and the catch. So pushing down, and there really isn't there's not much propulsion there because you're still only kind of pushing down in this direction. And then what's happening there is you're kind of dragging it back. It's kind of slipping back out a little bit through the water here. So you haven't got a huge amount of propulsion from that arm, which would account for a lot of the, or the lack of speed.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're looking at this, what we're looking for is there's two things ultimately. There's things that produce drag, and there's reducing drag, and there's increasing propulsion. Normally start off by looking at what's reducing drag, because that's normally most people's problems. Your arm's doing that. It's actually doing both. It's creating drag by lifting your front end up and dropping your back end, but it's also obviously not giving you the propulsion that you need. Okay, so let's have a look at your left. I like your head position. Head position is looking nice and kind of down in this direction here. Your arm is coming in, and again, there's no early engagement of the catch. So if I show you, this one. Go away. I'm sure this is the best angle actually. Let me She's a bit of a glider, this girl. Let's see if we can find a different angle. She actually pushes down a little bit as well. So she's got the high elbow. As the hand comes down, she makes sure she gets the elbow up high, which produces the angle, this angle here, and then the propulsion backwards.
Mine's really.
Yeah, so your arm's straight down. We'll have a look at that in a different angle in a minute. So, and again, get rid of that one. So his hand enters the water. He's got a bit of a glide on the front there. And then again, he's got this, it's always related to having this elbow nice and high. And that's the reaching over the barrel thing that Russ was talking about.
Yeah.
Having this, making sure the elbow is high all the time. You do bend the elbow at that point, but it's almost a little bit too late then. And then you pull up a little bit close to the body and then back down again. That's not too bad, that kind of back end bit there. That's on the right hand side. So this is the right hand side when you haven't taken a breath. So you're dropping your elbow right down and you're slipping backwards. So rather than kind of being in this angle and pulling back, you're dropping down and you're pulling it back out. So again, it's just arm position. See that?
Yeah.
So you're actually just kind of slipping back through the water that way, and then back out that way. This is good because it's, when you look at it and you go, oh, I can't see very much on the first glimpses, you almost want to find something to get your teeth stuck into.
Yeah.
That looks better there. That looks better that time. That's better. You got into an earlier catch on that stroke. Putting a little bit close to the body, which we'll have a look at in a minute, but that's not too bad.
Should it be further out?
Yeah, so I'll show you. There's a different angle in a minute. It should be about 100 to 120 degrees. So you should be, and it should be out parallel. It should be parallel with your shoulder.
Yeah.
Well, I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so here we take the breath. This is going to be an interesting one. So we've taken the breath. Spending a long time taking a breath. So your head should turn, take a breath, and be back in. And what's happening is it's causing this front end of the body to sink down. We'll just keep going, shall we? Yeah, okay. It's just more of the same, really. It's timing. It's what's happening when your hand is entering in the water in relation to the rest of the body roll. I'll compare the two. You and I'll put John Van Hazel there, so you can see the timing side by side. So it's the timing of the stroke and the actual quality of the catch and the pull through as well. The legs, despite what's happening, I actually think you've got quite good buoyancy.
Yeah, it's not as bad as I thought.
No, your legs are quite. I mean, the surface is only here, and you're considering what's happening at the front end here. Yeah. I think you've potentially got quite a natural, good buoyancy anyway. Otherwise, your legs have been much lower than they are. Let's just have a look at your breath.
I used to be very sort of 90 degree on the ankles as well, which I've done nothing consciously to improve that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it doesn't seem as bad on those.
Let's just take it through and you take a breath. Yeah, okay. That's what I suspected was going to happen. All right, okay, so you take a breath there. So you've held it to that point. You're still holding breath in here. You've let some out. You've got the rest of it in here still, because when you continue the stroke through, a bit more comes out. And then when you take another breath, which you should do now, bang, it all comes out at the last minute, look. Yeah? what that does is it leads, obviously it makes the front end buoyant. You can see yourself arching up here. Makes the front end buoyant. Well, again, it should cause the legs to drop, but again, your legs are in a pretty good position. Nice pointed toes, which is good. But what it does do is it causes a build-up of CO2, which can make you feel like it kind of creates kind of a stress, and doesn't lead to a relaxing swim. So that's a breathing issue, which is one thing we'd have to look at, which is breathing exercises and constant exhalation, bubble breathe, as you said earlier. It's exactly what that's all about. It's a bit kind of corny doing that, but it does really get you to constantly think about it. So by the time you take that breath, your lungs should be empty, and you can just go, and you're back into your stroke again. You've got a quicker breath.
I mean, I know that when I'm above the surface at that point, I'm still breathing out.
Yeah, yeah. So you're reducing the amount of time you've got to breathe back in. So you're always kind of short on how much you can get in.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's have a look at another angle, see what we've got. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Okay, fine. All right, so above, let's see what we've got here. Good start, look at that, nice and straight. Let's bang on, that is, look at that. So we want to be swimming along some tram lines. We want to be swimming along like this.
Yeah.
So your hand should enter the water, and this is the over rotation, you see? You're almost 90 degrees in the water. We should be 45 degrees, thereabouts, you're over rotating. And that's because you're spending too long breathing, and your lead arm is sinking down, taking you over still. I got stung between the eyes by a bee at the weekend. You can notice my eyes are all, you see it? I look like an alien. Yeah. So it's all kind of slightly out of sorts at the moment. Okay, so all kind of slightly out of position here. So you've over-rotated a little bit. This lead arm is starting to come over here. And then your recovering arm is entering the water while you're still kind of twisted.
Yeah.
So again, it's down to stroke timing again. But what it does do is it enters, reasonably in front of the shoulder, extends forward, and you can see your catch engaging there. And then the recovering hand comes in. So you haven't really got any crossover issues. That looks fine. That looks fine. You've got a bit of a scissor kick here going on. That. But again, that's this over rotation.
Right, okay.
So your body's going, Christ, I need to balance up here, and your legs split.
That looks quite.
It always looks worse than it actually is. It always looks worse than it is. That is a scissor kick, but it's. And most people do that to some degree, but that is purely caused by this over rotation here. If you're at 45 degrees, that would be half that distance. And that causes a shitload of drag, basically. So we need to be able to get rid of that. Most of what we're going to be looking at is breathing and body alignment drills. And I'll give you some Brett Sutton tips as well, so you can kind of go away and experiment with both, really.
Yeah.
I suspect I know what you'll prefer. Just if you like your pool boy. Okay. Oh, there we go. Look, basking shark. Look.
Yeah, pushing down.
So you're taking your breath. Backwards, this thing. Come on, catch up. Oh, there we go. Take your breath. Holding your breath, holding your breath, holding your breath, holding your breath, still holding it. And then you think, I better breathe out at some point. I mean, you hardly breathed out at all then, did you? Until the last minute. Okay. And then finally, I think this natural buoyancy thing is a really good thing. It's most, you know, I think a lot of people would give their hind teeth to be like that. I know I would, because it's forgiving you some of your ills. I mean, you're still high. Look at that. You're pushing down, but you're still high. So what I'm looking at this angle then really is the angle of the arms. And we can see on the right hand side here this pushing down and dragging back thing. So you're probably losing 60 or 70% of your propulsion there, which is great because it means if you can get that back, it's going to make you're going to be making its huge inroads into what you're doing. Yeah. Okay. So you should be. If I can show you. Let's have a look at her again. I mean, you can see her catch engagement there, look. So she enters the water, and it's all driven by the fingertips. So you drive the fingertips down, it pulls the rest of the arm down, and look at that. So she's got all that pushing straight back. Yeah. Hands driven down. I mean, look at that, it's parallel to the surface almost, and then pushes straight back. Yeah. Just play that through so you can see. There's definitely an entering of the water and then a driving down of the fingertips to create this angle here, and then a pushing straight back. So what we'll have a look at So what we'll have a look at is, if I open up the So I know you've seen this before, but I'm just going to put it on here so it's recorded onto the footage for you.
Yeah.
Let's try this one.
When performing the breathe, bubble, bubble, breathe exercise, it's important to just very loosely say the word bubble, bubble in the water as the left hand and the right hand goes into the water in synchronization. And of course, there's no need to say breathe out to the side. That's when you are taking a breath in. So it's breathe in and then bubble, bubble, breathe, and just repeating that over and over again. It's a great way to ensure you're exhaling smoothly into the water and also getting the timing of bilateral breathing.
Yeah, I mean, how do you find breathing on the other side? Is it a real problem?
It's not, no. Even with a poor boy, but certainly without, as I begin to tire, then I'll revert back. So I have done other sessions during the year, where I breathe to the left, going up one way, and then right, coming down the other. But I think in my own head, I'd probably feel a little bit more confident if I was breathing like that in terms of left then right, because obviously the video will tell the truth. I think that would help in my own mind correct some of it as well, because I'd be able to, so for the right arm, for example, I don't really see anything that's happening with that.
Yeah.
So although it didn't come as a major shock, I didn't think I was pushing that far down without pulling back.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's going to take some, if you're willing to put the work in to actually get the bilateral breathing up and running, then absolutely it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to pay dividends, and over the winter, that's one of the things I go for.
Yeah, and you will always favour one side. You won't get to the point where you're happy on both sides, right. But if you can get to the point where it doesn't really bother you that much, it will really balance up the stroke. So the other option is as the Brett Sutton method, which is, I mean, he actually promotes breathing on one side, but it means you've got to really work on balancing up your stroke. So you work on a lot of power on the one side to counterbalance.
Right.
And some people prefer that, and it may well be that you give this a go for 8 weeks or something, but you'd have to you need to be going at least 4 times a week
To get that.
to drill it in, to give it chance. Because most people will give it 1 or 2 times a week for 6 weeks. Just won't get it. It does take longer than that. The main thing I think for me really is just to get the constant exhalation. Even if you breathe on one side, just work on the constant exhalation to try and get that relaxation. Once you get the relaxation, then even if you're just breathing on one side, you'll find swimming so much easier and more enjoyable because you haven't got the kind of the stress build up that you've got. So that's one thing we'll work at. We'll work on the sink down drills, which no doubt you've seen as well. I always think they're a bit Mickey Mouse, but they really do, especially when there's no one else around. You can kind of practice them. And have you seen the sink down drills where you constant exhalation? It does kind of bring it home to you, the importance of it, and actually how much oxygen, how much air you are holding in your lungs.
Yeah, it's not impossible, but it is difficult to actually get to the bottom.
Yeah. And if you do 2 or 3 of those every time you go swimming, within a couple of weeks you'll really nail it, and you'll know exactly what you should be doing, and it really does help. So bubble breathe and sink down drill. I'm not going to touch your legs for the time being. The other thing we'll work on, again, if you swim smooth aware, you'll be aware of all these drills. Kicking on the side. Have you got fins?
Yeah, not with me.
Okay. Right.
Maybe with me. But
So kicking on the side drill, and this is for you. This is kind of does a number of things really. Obviously, it makes sure you're in nice straight body alignment, which you are anyway. But what it does is it makes sure that when you breathe,
the kick on your side drill.
Turn this down. When you breathe, you keep your arm high. You're not letting that arm sink down. See how he breathes? The arm stays high. Whereas yours is actually starting to drift down. So it gets you to actually remember to keep the arm high when you breathe. You can practice the bubble breathe and the constant exhalation while you're doing this drill as well. Just turn the sound up a bit so you can go.
Kicking on your side. Left arm extended forward, right arm held loosely down by your side, almost just down by your hips. Have your eyes looking down towards the bottom of the pool, blowing a long, continuous stream of bubbles. Turn your head to the side to take a breath whenever you need to, but otherwise have your attention looking down towards that black line. When you're kicking on your side, think about drawing your shoulder blades together and back to allow great alignment of your middle finger straight down the pool, pointing straight forward in front of the same shoulder. One of the most commonly overlooked issues with this particular drill is for that lead arm to be collapsing or just hung loosely in the water. The lead arm needs to have a sense of rigidity about it, fingertips below the wrist and wrist below the elbow. Otherwise, if you collapse onto your elbow and allow the hand to rise up towards the surface of the water, you'll effectively be pushing yourself backwards and sinking your legs. Notice how the palm of the hand is looking down towards the bottom of the pool, not with the palm turned out towards the side, as is commonly seen when people try this exercise for the first time.
Okay, stop it there. Okay, so that's a good one for you to practice your exhalation, staying nice and in alignment, and keeping that lead arm high when you breathe. And then the 616, you've got to do these. You've got to do these with fins on. And the best fins are these drill fins, so the longer ones. The little short, stubby ones, you have to kick a little bit harder to get the propulsion. These ones allow you to kind of really relax into the stroke and think about what you're doing at the front end. So the 616 is just a progression of the kicking on the side, but you introduce a stroke. And because you're only introducing one stroke every now and again, every 6 kicks, you can concentrate on what that stroke, what that arm is doing, think about what it's doing. You can actually look at it. Your head position is actually quite a long way forward. So if you think about it, you can actually keep an eye on that. what that arm is doing. Make sure the elbow is, make sure like I naturally held it like that, when in actual fact it should be like that. So you're always driving things from the fingertips. So the 616, and then it just progresses up 636. So the same kind of thing, but just, and you start to build up to a more natural stroke then. And I wouldn't spend any time doing normal swimming.
Just practice on the
Just
drill.
practice the drills over and over again. I mean, when I say don't do any swimming, I mean maybe at the end of the session, take the fins off and just try and really kind of concentrate. But just do a handful of lengths.
But rather than churning out 2.5K
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
hundreds.
I mean, I put a thing out the other day, I don't know if you saw it on the Facebook thing, about people just ploughing up and down, doing bad form. I mean, what's the point?
Well, that's, again, partly mindset, but one of the reasons why I thought, no, I'm not going to. It's been an easy option to take, if I'm truthful, but what's the point of reinforcing what I'm doing bad?
And you mentioned, all the races you've done, and they've all been kind of similar or slightly disappointing performances, and it's because you're doing the same thing in your training all the time. So doing something different is only going to improve it, isn't it? Again, I kind of feel like I'm a stuck record talking about Brett Sutton all the time, but he gets his lot to swim 25s and 50s, over, rest, 25, rest, 25, rest, 25, rest, 25, rest. They do it. So he has every single length is a good quality length. And he says, how many good strokes did you do? How many good lengths did you do today? Well, they were all good lengths. Like, I've only swum half a distance, but they were all good lengths, whereas other people will be doing like the first 3 lengths would be good and they'll be knackered for all the rest. Yeah. So that's where we need to kind of come from with this, and just be patient with it, because it will come. So their body positioning, breathing, and again, you will have seen these, but I'll show you them. I'll go through them anyway. So the skull. So skull number 1, and this is again, it's all about tuning your brain into your body being in a certain position. Okay, and this is obviously your hand was dropping down and dragging back a little bit. This is getting you used to being over the barrel shaped.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sure you've done this before. You know if you're getting it right because you go forwards. As soon as you drop that elbow down, I think he does it in a minute.
Okay, so use the pull buoy with those.
Yeah, use the pull buoy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You won't be able to do it without. Otherwise, your back end will be sinking. So keep your head up. You've got to relax. There's no. I mean, he goes quite quick because he's really good at it. But sometimes you barely move forward. And you can change the position, and you get faster if you get the right position with it. And we'll go through this in a minute. But it's just simply in and out. Let's just see if we can. Yeah, so his is worse than yours because you don't drop the elbow that much. But he's just demonstrating a similar kind of thing, just pushing down.
I mean, the older mine drops, isn't it? Where the arm stays in line, but the old bit is pushing down.
Yeah. There we go, look, so he starts going backwards if he drops his elbows. And then classic one, doggy paddle. This drill, doggy paddle drill. Do you ever do the doggy paddle?
No.
Okay. Well, this is with the. In fact, he hasn't got a pull buoy in there. I don't think. You can do it with a pull buoy or without, if you need the help. In fact, maybe he has. So, has he? Here he has. Yeah. If you need a bigger pull buoy as well, get a bigger pull buoy. People kind of get all funny about pull buoys. You shouldn't be, they're almost like you shouldn't be touching them, Yeah. If you need a pull buoy, get one, and get one that's big enough. I've seen people strapping 2 or 3 together.
Russ said to me, because the one that I've got is with me today, and I've got 2, a Finnish one and a decathlon one. He said the decathlon one which I've got is crap. And he advised me, although I've not got one yet, to get one of the Hoob ones.
Yeah, I've got one here which you can try.
But there's two of them as well, isn't it? You got the big boy and the toy boy. So I nearly ordered one the other week, but I wasn't sure which was the best to go for.
Yeah, I don't know about this. I think the smaller one's more like a standard. As I'm looking down there, I can't see it in my bag of bits actually.
Probably be better off getting the bigger one.
The big one. The big one is like twice as big as a normal one. Or just if you've got two pool boys,
just stick them together.
Take them together. Just take them together. So doggy paddle, so you just extend forward under the water. So you extend your hand forward, and then you get the catch position. You're just practicing. Driving the fingertips down, pushing it back. And you can see how if you do this drill enough, you'll start to really tune into this. That combined with the alignment will start to make real differences. But it is just work, just drilling it and drilling it and drilling it. And then just, as I said before, just do 25s. Or what you can do is you can do a sculling drill, do a couple of lengths sculling drill, do a couple of 25s, do a couple of lengths doggy paddle, a couple of 25s, and just constantly try and get it in there. And I think that's it for now. I don't think there's any point in spending any time on anything else. So in summary then, working on our breathing, working on our body positioning, that will improve your timing anyway. Once you start working on your body positioning and the quality of your catch, your timing and when your hand actually enters the water and starts the catch phase should improve anyway. But like any things like swimming, it's always kind of chipping away, and it may well be that we look at you again in 8 weeks or something like that. Just keep on fine-tuning as we go. All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
right, so I'm going to switch this off. Have you got any questions or anything that you want
really.
on here?
I mean, I've got all of those drills anyway on various clips and that, so I'm happy with those. I mean, I do like the Brett Sutton approach.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to mix the two up, but I'm probably more familiar with the only stuff I know about Brett's approach is what I read if something like Ema Mullen would post something up online, or he's put one of his Twitter feeds on, whereas these ones I'm more familiar with. Yeah,
they do contradict to each other a lot, so it's difficult to kind of get them to fit together.
Blend together.
The principles are the same. You need a good strong catch and pull through. He spends a lot of time concentrating on the actual push phase where you're pushing back, and you mentioned that you might finish your stroke a little bit early. I think you mentioned Russ said something to you about that. That's something we can look at further on the line, but he spends a lot of time on that element of the phase of the stroke. But apart from that, they are chalk and cheese. But I think it's a case of giving this kind of methodology a go. And if you really still feel like you're not getting anywhere, then we try something new.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. All right. Just so as you know, this app, I'm not on a sell job here because I don't get any money from this. But do you know the app?
Yeah.
You get free access to it for 48 hours, and it is good actually.
You get the code with BTF then as well.
Do you get a discount code, do you, or something?
Yeah, if you're in BTF, the weekly or monthly payment, whichever one it is slightly cheaper. If you do the year one, I think it's 20, 30 quid off or something like that through BTF.
Okay.
You just launch your membership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Paul works with BTF, doesn't he?
Yeah, they do all that stuff. They do all the coaching stuff now for them.